our thumbnails, they just get better and better every single week, don't they, fellas? But we are back for another episode of Pony Express Radio. I am, of course, Mr. RedHawk. I'm joined tonight by Mr. Pete Quinones. How are you, Pete?
Doing good.
And we're joining tonight. Take that, Burton. You've stolen your number one guest. We're joined by Mr. Karl Dahl tonight. How are you?
Hey, fellas. Good evening.
All right, good to have you. Let's get some housekeeping out of the way, and then we'll get into a topic that all of us love oh so very much. And we get to flex on the rest of the Anglosphere for a bit, which is always fun. So, alrighty, gentlemen, as always, it is White Boy Winter. I know a lot of people up north are in the grips of a huge blizzard right now. Hopefully, you guys got your snow shovels out and are surviving as best you can. But if you want to get shredded for the inevitable return of White Boy Summer, please head over to Axios Remote Fitness and Coaching, where you too can get shredded when the snows inevitably melt once again. In addition to that, if you guys want your caffeine fix, please head on over to Fox and Sons Coffee for all of you coffee drinkers out there. I hear it gives you great power. But what gives me great power during this tax season is nicotine. Oh boy, do we love nicotine over here at the OGC. We are fans of big tobacco, and my nicotine of choice is Alp nicotine pouches. I've got one sitting in my desk in the office right now, getting me through 11-hour shifts. So link down in the description for your Alp nicotine pouches. While you're at it, give some patronage over to MS Vendrillo Suits. You can always tell at any of the OGC events who is wearing a Vendrillo suit. It immediately stands out, and I myself am looking forward to getting fitted for one at this year's conference. And finally, give some patronage to our friend, Mr. George Bagby, over at Tall Man Books. He has been doing some excellent work bringing back some books back into print from America's history in this the 18th, 19th, 20th century. So be sure to give some patronage to fellow friends. All right, gentlemen, we're here to talk about something that, if you don't own a gun, how could you call yourself an American?
Man, it's hard, but I mean, there's a lot of people who are just like, well, I'm happy that you have that right.
It's kind of gay.
yeah, pretty much. Well, for sure. I guess I'll just get it right in the start. I mean, it really just is something that you just see absolutely everywhere from a young age, whether it's in our cartoons like Looney Tunes, gotta have guns in almost every single episode. I mean, I was gifted a gun, I think I was like age 9 was probably the first time I was actually gifted one. I had been shooting like for a couple of years beforehand or something. Just always grew up around guns. Never found them really to be weird. Never, really was like scared of them or any way. It was just like, oh wow, okay, this is what we do. We're Americans. We have guns in the house. This is how you handle it properly. What have you? So I don't really know where somebody would even like get the start. Of like getting introduced to guns in this day and age. It's just so foreign to me to not have them around. I carry every single day. I've had them around my entire life. Go hunting all the time. Go shooting all the time. Was competition ranked in sporting clay shooting when I was in high school. There's just it's like as intrinsic to me as like breathing air. I don't even know.
The tack type stuff is really cool, of course, and we all find it wonderful and know how important it is. But you really don't get into like serious gunspurgery until you get into distinct types of hunting, which is just a wonderland of, niche arguments among people who have, very strong opinions for a variety of reasons. And most of the time it's like mostly in jest, right? But when you do pick up for example, side-by-side 16 gauge on a 20 gauge frame and you're doing, upland grouse hunts and you're scaling across boulders and stuff, you're like, oh, this makes sense. It weighs 3.5 pounds less than that 12 gauge. It's fun.
I mean, I would have never even known what a 22 250 even was unless I was out shooting, varmints and prairie dogs.
Oh, yeah.
It's just a gun I would have no use for aside from that. It's like, oh well, you want to shoot the head off a prairie dog at 300 yards? Well, this is the gun to do it.
The spurgery around hunting calibers is I love it.
It's
I mean,
wonderful.
I could just sit there and be like, I'll just start it off. And it's one of those things where I'll just throw a bomb and step back and everything. And I'll just be like, if you're not hunting with a 270, I mean, I don't even know what you're doing.
Just go into a conversation, be like, is 30-06 too much for deer?
And it's just every hunter has a caliber that's just like perfect for a deer, just perfect for a deer. And it's like, to hear the conversations, there was where I used to work in Buckhead in Atlanta. There was a cigar bar I used to go into all the time, and a lot of the guys in there were like really wealthy hunters and everything. Like half of the time you'd walk in there, it would just be a caliber discussion about hunting.
270 is correct, by the way.
I have a buddy who would say 7mm, but hey.
Yeah.
7's great in Oregon.
Yeah.
In Oregon, they the wisdom of using a 7 mag when that became available for elk, because there's so much elk hunting up there, that like the average person got to a point where they believed you needed a 7 mag for like deer hunting. And it's like they weigh like on the big side, they weigh like 250 pounds to 3. I mean, there's some very large blacktail that I've encountered in Oregon that are on the like 400-pound side, but like most of the time you're talking about these like coastal deer that are like 250 pounds, and people are like, I need a 11-pound 7 mag, or else I'm undergunned.
Yeah, I guess he's shooting his deer from 450 yards away, apparently.
Yeah, a guy who fires 5 rounds for sight in, at 100 yards, and then is like, I'm ready for my long shot. Although I know a decent number of people that consistently make very long shots, in high country and stuff. So I'm not poo-pooing those people whatsoever.
Well, not to toot my own horn too much last year, but when I was on safari, I shot a kudu at 375 yards, which was nice.
Nice. Now, remind me, where were you specifically?
I was in South Africa.
Oh, sweet. Did you bring your own gear in?
Oh no! One of the most nightmare countries in the world.
That's my understanding.
Yeah. No.
Okay.
If everyone wants to get into it, go to Tanzania, go to Botswana. Way more chill. I wanted to try South Africa because I had hunted in Tanzania and Zimbabwe and Zambia previously, and I was like, okay, well, let's see what it's like in South Africa. And it's like, no, you know what? There's other places that are better.
Is it the hunting not as good, or is it just the anti-white regime there makes everything miserable?
I would say, definitely the politics of the situation, and it's also just not as wild.
That makes sense.
Yeah, but I wanted to give it a try, and I did. So I got my fill of it.
Nice. That's awesome. I don't think I've ever told you guys this before, but when I was a kid, there's a scene in my first novel where the main character goes to the home of a very wealthy person who lives in this neighborhood called Magnolia in Seattle. That's kind of the northwest of downtown, and it's this neighborhood that was built out mostly in, I don't think there's anything newer than the 50s. I'm sure there's stuff there now where they would tear down an old house and build some monstrosity, but there would literally be like 4 and 5 acre places there that my friend's grandfather had, like 5 acres, indoor pool, and then he had a safari room because in the 50s and 60s he did all these hunts in Africa and Asia, and he had the front end of a bull elephant coming out of the wall. It was like, when
Awesome.
you're like 8, it is the sickest thing you've ever seen. It was so cool. And just the taxidermy, and my buddy fortunately inherited some of the taxidermy, and it's some pretty wild stuff. He like barely has room for it, but he has, I think it's a lion taking down a gazelle or something like that.
Sweet.
It's pretty gnarly. It's incredibly valuable.
Yeah, I had to text Bird and congratulate him when he started doing his show with that leopard skin up on the wall now. So yeah, very, very badass. If anyone in the chat is ever interested in looking at some very, very cool taxidermy, head on over to the Wildlife Gallery. They're a company up in northern Michigan that does a lot of very, very interesting indoor taxidermy pieces, and you get really interesting, like whole guys put up like entire mountains in one of their trophy rooms, and it's just like with every species of goat or wild sheep in the world, just all on top of it. It's like going into like a Cabela's, where they have like the big mountain in the middle of it and stuff. And it's like that's like the crazy part, when you like go into a Cabela's with somebody and you just explain to them, okay, so there's about $1 million worth of taxidermy in here just in and of itself. Taxidermy is not cheap.
Yeah. There's a beautiful Cabela's very close to me that, people who aren't as accustomed to that sort of a thing, it's really fun to take them there just so that they can have their minds blown and see all the native fish too is fun.
Oh yeah. Well, there's like a whole history around taxidermy at the turn of the 20th century, right? Because it's not like there were zoos in every major city, right? So people were like, oh well, how are we going to figure out what a lot of these animals look like, right? And a lot of these like famous industrialists, hunters, Teddy Roosevelt being one of them, stocked all of the museums with these rooms of animal dioramas were really, really popular. There's some amazing exhibits. If you guys go to like the Carnegie Museum in Pittsburgh or the Chicago Field Museum or obviously the Smithsonian and stuff, it's really, really cool to see, because it's like, oh wow, what does a giraffe look like? Well, I guess I have to see a taxidermied one, because it's not like I could just go to the local zoo and see a giraffe.
Yeah, that makes sense. The Field Museum in Chicago is amazing. The dinosaur bone exhibit there is incredible. Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. It is. Anyone who hasn't been there and has a chance to go, you should go. It's incredible.
Yeah, very cool.
Apparently, Oren's upset that we didn't invite him to the gun episode.
Oh well, big sad.
Damn.
He was maybe next time. Speaking of the Chicago Field Museum and guns and everything, I remember talking to Thomas about this not too long ago. Is that the lines of Savo, those famous man eaters, are taxidermied. The carcasses of those 2 lions are in the Field Museum. Right. They ate like 200 Indian workers, when they were building. Yeah,
heroes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, immortalized forever. Yeah, very cool. I guess one of the other things we could talk about here is just like we have a lot of really cool guns throughout the history of the United States. Well, even if you're going back to like basic Kentucky long rifles and what have you during the Revolutionary period, all the way up to obviously the famous 6-shooters popularized in all the Old West movies. Of course, the 1911 and various other guns that for the 20th century. What are some that really stand out to you guys, American firearms?
Go ahead, Dahl.
Oh my goodness, I could go on and on. Colt New Service. The Colt New Service is a large frame Colt revolver that was in 4440, 45 Colt, 44 Special, and some of the other kind of turn of the century like transition from black powder cartridges. But then the Border Patrol under Charles Askins adopted them in 38 Special with like a 4 or 5 inch barrel. I can't remember. And they're incredibly neat. And the 45 ACP model 1917 contribution from Colt is essentially the New Service, chambered in 45 ACP using Half Moon cartridges, or excuse me, Half Moon clips for holding the cartridges. So you would have 2 of those with 3 rounds each. They're incredibly cool guns. And unfortunately they command a major premium now, but they're like one of the coolest, you know, still useful, but on the vintagey side of things. And yeah, I've been stalking a good example of one because I want to do a Fitz, and one, you know, I'm kind of retarded, so what I want to do is I want to get one in 4440 and replicate the one that my character in my second novel had to get made at an armory in northern Spain from basically knockoffs of that gun that were being made in Spain, and just as a short fighting weapon, because they actually had 4440 cartridges, which they called 44 Largo, in the Spanish supply chain, because they issued a basically a copy of a Winchester Model 92 lever gun in 4440 to the Guardia Civil. And it's a really cool rifle. And a lot of the ones that you saw in the Westerns in the 50s and 60s and into the 70s were those Spanish guns that they're incredibly cool. I mean, it's just a copy. There's nothing special about them, but just this whole like rocking a kind of vintage cowboy thing in Spain is pretty amusing when you think about the loop-de-loo of the vaquero life in the new world going back to the old world.
Well, I'm going to go with one that I know Carl will like. It's a little out of the ordinary because it's actually considered an FN gun, but it is definitely John Browning design, the FN Model 1910.
Ooh, baby.
Which I have a 19. I have the 1922, the bigger version, with some markings on it that are highly desired. But yeah, that and of course the Colt Model 1903 hammerless, the pocket gun. Those were just and that really sets off the conflicts when you start getting into 32 ACP and 765. You're now you can start talking about the conflicts that are to come.
You know what I hate when we mentioned the Colt 1903? A friend of mine, his family had a cabin on a lake that was out a ways when the place was built in the 40s. And then with kind of the tech boom, it was very close to a large campus of a large software company. And so there were a lot of people with a lot of money. And so the family who had inherited this place and had it for like 4 generations, I want to say, decided to sell it for just crazy amounts of money. It made sense in terms of the fact that the tax bill for this place became crazy, and it became a problem for them to collectively be like, okay, we got to pony up like, 14 grand a year for the little 800 square foot cabin out on the lake. And anyway, so they sold it. And the reason I mentioned the Colt 1903 is that his great grandfather had a Colt 1903 that was sitting in this safe that the lock had been removed from, or the dial component of the lock, so it couldn't be locked for some reason. And it was this massive safe and this great little 32. And I had this like intuition that I should take it and hold it for my friend, because he had all these. He was for a time he was hanging out with some less savory characters, and I was like, someone's going to pilfer it. And what I want to do is give it back to him, like after this period is done, or give it to his dad to make sure that like it's taken care of. And I didn't do that. And it got swiped like the next weekend.
Oh.
And I felt, because I was like, it would be wrong for me to take it, but my instinct was crying out to me, take it and hold it and then give it in a safer situation, like at his house, because my spidey senses were tingling. But those are incredible pistols. I will say this. I highly recommend not carrying a Colt 1903. There are famous cases of gun writers killing themselves when they slipped out of their holsters and had an ND or an unintentional discharge, put a flat nose hard cast lead bullet right through their heart, which like it happened like twice, one in the 70s and one in the 90s. So like you probably shouldn't carry those things, but they're really cool.
Are we sure Sega wasn't making them?
Yeah, they're just not drop safe. It's not American, so I won't talk about it too much, but Spanish automatics of varying quality, there are a number of them that are not drop safe also, and a lot of it is just the era. A lot of the older guns weren't drop safe because they had a very direct ignition system with the firing pin and the hammer. They don't have some of the more modern safety mechanisms. So you should be careful with some of those old guns, but they still work, is what I would say. And let's just put it this way. I'll choose my words carefully. If you happen to inherit some old guns that seem marginal, like they're 32s or 380s or whatever, don't sell them. Just hang on to them. Get some ammunition for them that you pay for in cash. That's all I'm saying. They'll be handy someday.
That's interesting because right around the time that we're talking about, you had the Ivor Johnson, Harrison, and Richardson Saturday Night Specials start coming into production, and I mean really, really low cost and quote unquote personal defense weapons.
Yes, I had a friend whose father I became very close to, and he had been a firefighter. He was a retired firefighter after a military career, and he had one H&R, and then another one was an Ivor Johnson, and they were about this. The H&R was a little nicer, surprisingly, when you compare it to the later guns that they were making in like the 50s and 60s, right? But these older break top 38 Smith & Wesson and 32 Smith & Wessons were really well made, and they're really cool. And you can still get them for pretty cheap. They're not expensive. They're nothing you would want to carry or do anything serious with, but they're fun.
The right around this time, like did you mention the Smith & Wesson Model 10? Because I mean that's like that was the cop gun. Yeah, I mean that was the cop gun. It was like I think pretty much most of the police departments in the country issued Smith & Wesson Model 10s.
Yeah, and they're really nice guns. They shoot really well. They're not cheap anymore. That's one of the biggest problems. But again, they're worth what you pay for them. So if you have to pay $400 for one, I'll leave it as is. 38 Special is perfectly potent cartridge.
Oh yeah.
Use good quality ammunition. They'll generally be sighted into like 158 grain bullet, but you'll find like 148 grain wad cutter shoots really well. Again, warning, if you start getting into this more obscure stuff and older stuff, like hand loading will save your life. Like 9mm, like there's literally no point in hand loading 9mm unless you're just an autist. Which I respect. I'm not disrespecting. I will say this: the guys who shoot like 1,000 rounds a month, competitively, like that's when reloading 9mm might make sense. But
yeah, I don't even know. I don't even know then.
Yeah.
But like I don't hand load anymore. But when I did, it was mostly 38, 357, and 10mm. Like I think 10 millimeter was the only semi-auto cartridge that I hand loaded because I just wanted my own loads for those.
Yeah. And that makes sense because it's one of those ones that has it has a depth and breadth to it, right?
Even if you don't, even if you don't hand load, you should at least have some experience into what the process is like. I mean, I don't do it personally, but a family friend of mine has been into it for many, many, many years. Army veteran kind of guy. And I remember when I was a kid growing up, I went over to his house and he took me through the entire process of how to do it. I was helping him with it and everything. It's, I mean, it's a very interesting process, and I can understand how it would trigger people's, tisms, be a good hobby to have. So everyone should at least be familiar with the process.
And I'll say this also, the cheapest thing to get into hand loading is shot shells. You can get a Lee Load-All 2 for less than $100. And then of course you need to get all the components for it and everything like that. But that's really good for making like quality hunting ammunition for a shockingly decent price. Buckshot also, like there's some really great loads that have been around for like 120, 140 years that you can replicate through hand loading. And like I know like Rio which is a manufacturer out of Spain.
I've always hated their ammo.
Yeah, that they'll do versions of these things, but the ammo quality isn't very good. And so like if you want to have like number 3 buck for a 20 gauge for an auto loader, or you want to do like my preference, which is number 1 buck and 2 3/4 inch 20 gauge, and just tune it to be like 7/8 of an ounce to an ounce. So it's a really mild load, but it just hits like lightning because they're 30 caliber pellets. You have to hand load it to get a quality load. And so it's really cheap and easy to do it with like that Lee Load-All, and it works fine. It's not what you would want to do if you're cranking out like tons of bird shot or doing like sporting clays competition or something like that. Like the more automated things is the only way that you're really going to save money and time because it's time consuming. But when you're loading buckshot, you're literally dropping the pellets in with your hand.
Yeah, exactly.
So and there's people that also hunt in more restrictive states where it's buckshot only or buckshot or slugs, and it's really easy to get into. And it's really fun. Like I 3D printed a bunch of components for like doing the taper on the so after you if you roll crimp buckshot and then you want to add an extra taper so that it'll load better in an auto loader, you get this little extra piece that you can mount in and just press in. And people have the design out, the STL file out there so that you can just print it yourself and slap it in and jam it out. And then it's like, oh, that, buying all these little components, the prices can easily add up, but you can do a lot of that stuff with 3D printing too for some of these kind of niche elements to experiment with. So it's really fun stuff.
Yeah, Rio is just absolutely the worst. I don't know how many times it's
super dirty.
Stuck.
Oh, absolute ass ammunition.
Yeah,
and it won't cycle out of a semi-auto shotgun to save its life, dude.
But it's like it's the only place you're going to find certain loads, because Europe is a very, especially Spain, is a very shotgun oriented hunting.
Yeah, they do a lot of wing shooting there.
A ton of it. And but again, my point was like the quality sucks. So like that's where hand loading makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about here, some of our favorite American guns, but of course, we can't forget the great gun manufacturers of the United States. Unfortunately, many of them have to move out of their historic headquarters due to political reasons. And, I remember, who was it? was it Smith and Wesson or was it Remington that got sued like in Connecticut or Delaware because of like recent shootings or what have you? They're like suing the gun manufacturers or something. It's like, you guys are making guns too deadly. It's fucking idiots. But I mean, my household was always a Remington household growing up. So I had the 870, I had the 700, had 783s, had 1187s. Well, all of them, like just a bunch of Remington guns. And that company is who they get bought out by. I totally forget who now owns it.
George Soros.
Yeah.
Zog Inc. Basically.
My Remington goes back to the Model 51 designed by the great John Peterson.
Those are awesome.
Yeah.
Those are so cool.
You can get in 32 or 380. But yeah. I mean, is 380 even a real caliber? Come on.
No. I never liked it. Never liked shooting 380.
Can I explain my advocacy for 32? It isn't that it's like the cartridge, right? Like, I mean, like my main gun that I carry is a Glock 19, or I carry, or I carry I have a Charter Arms.
What is a massive fucking faggot?
I have a Charter Arms Bulldog 44 Special that I'm just absolutely in love with. I got it either last year or the year before, and it is just such a great cartridge and a great little gun, but not perfect. But I've made it nice and I'm making it better. But anyway, point being, 32 automatic is in the olden days, generally the kind of cognoscenti would prefer the 32 over the 380. It's one more round, the cartridge has better penetration, so its effectiveness is way better than its on paper figures, right? In terms of lethality. Even in the like 80s and 90s, you would have like Marshall and Sanow who were doing those like stupid one-shot stop analyses, and the 32 automatic in certain loadings was as good as a lot of 9mm loads in terms of like their record. And my opinion is that, is probably people who just knew what they were doing, and that, it's a low recoil cartridge. And so you're not going to be intimidated by it, and you can get a little more practice in. And, the classic load for that, the reason I mention this is that hollow points have a purpose. And the purpose of a hollow point is to prevent overpenetration to where there's no energy transfer, right? But if you just say a defensive load for a handgun requires a hollow point, you don't understand what's taking place. There isn't enough energy in a 32 ACP for a hollow point to like penetrate enough. So what you'll find with like 32 ACP and 380, all of these like marginal calibers, is that a hollow point will, mushroom beautifully, but only penetrate like 4 or 5 inches. It won't make it through like the leather jacket or the denim or whatever. So if you stick to the old school flat nose lead that feeds like an FMJ, it penetrates a lot, but it does a much better job of transferring energy and doing damage versus an FMJ, which just kind of zips through. If all you can get is a European pressure FMJ, which is, you're starting to see American loads now in 32 ACP, that are on par with the European loads, but for a while they were loading about 100 FPS, 100 to 150 FPS, like lighter, because of like really junky American guns that were being made. I think it was the Sammy spec was really mild because of trash guns, and it's like, no, you should blow up your trash guns. And if you shoot European pressure stuff, you'll find all the 32 ACP nerds are like, use European pressure stuff. Buffalo Bore has a really good cartridge. Underwood has a great cartridge. I'm just like skip hollow points in a 32 ACP or like a 380 or something like that. I'm not talking about like a 38 special plus P. Like you have to analyze and you have to look at it. And if you go out to YouTube and you see these tests in gel and stuff like that, you'll understand why the old advice still carries that with like a 32 ACP, skip the hollow point. But the other advantage of it is that it has a very mild report. And so if you fire it through a suppressor, you will be shocked, and Pete can testify to this, you will be shocked at how quiet they are. They suppress like a 22, despite being kind of a real cartridge in terms of its penetration ability, not its overall energy. I'm not delusional, but it's shockingly quiet.
You're just
easy.
preemptively defending yourself from the comment section. You know, it's like,
Well,
oh well, you know.
but it's true because it's really easy for people to be, you know, like this is my thing that I'm into, but it's a marginal cartridge. I absolutely own that, but it's really good at certain kinds of things, and CIA guys would carry them overseas because it was like the smallest. You know, you could get these very small guns in 32, and like with the 380s, the 380 versions of them, they were basically like uncontrollable, you know, too snappy, and there's like no improvement in performance. And so by sticking with the 32, it's easy to control. It's kind of the 9mm argument, because, you know, we're all like, if you look at 9mm versus 40, like that argument is settled. Like 40 is more powerful than 9mm, but it's harder to shoot. It holds fewer rounds. It's the same story, just in a bigger envelope.
Well, that's why I like the 19 so much. I mean, it's 15 plus 1 on.
Yes.
Yeah,
Exactly.
That's plenty.
Exactly. And so like in a super small gun, you know, that same kind of argument carries. Now, do I think that that's like the way to go if you're going into harm's way? No. Do I think it's the greatest defensive weapon? Absolutely not. It's for like a pocket gun or something like that. But it'll still do the thing.
Yeah, if I'm going into a defensive situation, I want a carbine.
Exactly, a shotgun or a carbine. Like an M1 carbine. Great.
Handgun only exists to fight your way to your rifle.
It's true. It's boomer truth, but it's true.
Yeah. I like the 43X. You know, if I'm going to carry a Glock, I'll carry the 43X. But the Smith & Wesson CC9 is, I mean, the H&K CC9 is just amazing. It's, what's funny is I tried to shoot the Shadow 2 carry, and the Shadow 2 carry had more muzzle flip and felt recoil than my CC9, and my CC9 probably weighs, you know, a third.
Yes,
of the Shadow carry.
I like the classic CZ75, CZ85, but like their time has probably passed, Mr. Burden. They're cool guns. They're cool guns, but they are pretty hipster. It's funny that the HK guns are those, you know, there'll be people who poo-poo them because they're like, oh, you just care about that from video games and stuff. But it's like, no, they're really nice guns.
They're going to be around. They'll be around for generations.
Absolutely.
I mean, you can pass them down and pass them down and pass them down. And people are like, well, you know, H&K hates their customers. I'm like, they're German. That's what, yeah, they're German.
Gun is good. You buy.
It's like, come on. We buy it. Yeah, sure. There are some people who are going to buy HKs just because they see them in a video game or see them in a movie. They saw Collateral, and of course, you know, got to run out and get a USP. But I mean, buy one and shoot it, and then talk shit. You know?
Exactly.
It's It's kind of funny now in the video game industry. It's like back in the day, people just weren't aware of the fact that, oh, you put your gun in a video game or something, it's advertising and whatnot. And now like they're charging people to actually put their guns in the various games. So they just come up with like absolute goofball combinations of letters and numbers for their games, but just model it. It's like here's your KA-73, that you pick up in this game or something. It's clearly a Kalashnikov. So I don't know how much that plays these days.
It's really important in terms of people getting into guns. Like my dad didn't grow up hunting, but we had like some target rifles and other things. And so the way that I got really into them was from like comic books and movies and just reading gun magazines and stuff as a kid, and shooting and scouting. And so my dad was like, of course it's totally normal. And my mom grew up kind of a country kid, so I was able to indulge in such things. And it's really interesting because I grew up in this area that was like half like that and half libtarded. And so it made for a really funny dynamic where a lot of a fair number of kids that I grew up with hunted. And we were like on the edge. Like I lived in a place where my grandfather hunted when he was a kid. When it wasn't suburbs, right? And so it makes for an interesting dynamic. But like generationally, this is how people get into things. So I remember in the 90s and the aughts, like the boomers and especially like the silent generation type being like really off put by people getting into guns through media. And I'm like, the Smith & Wesson Model 29 became a big deal because of movies. And you just have this block that like only the media that I consume is like the legitimate channel for getting people into these things. It's like, no, it's going to happen. So just relax. And it's funny because I played GoldenEye after already knowing what the VZ61 was, which is still one of my favorite weapons of all time. And Mr. Pete's is quite nice. And it's, it makes me laugh because there are all these, people would call it the club and stuff. When I'm like, yeah, but look at all the people who got into guns playing these games. They're fun. It's like people who go into the military because they played video games and shooters and stuff, and they're like, "This is awesome. I want to do this."
There's a lot of good club videos on YouTube where they explain how it is just the bad guy gun. Like you try to find a movie where there's a good guy wielding one.
like the Steyr Og and Die Hard.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
it's beautiful.
Yeah,
I wanted an HK-P7. I mean, I know Hans is carrying an M13, but I wanted a P7 just because I saw Die Hard.
Oh, of course. It's totally normal. That's how you just get exposed to these things.
I think the price of mine has doubled since I bought it. I think I could sell it for like double what I bought.
I believe it. Remember when they were the German police ones? Because again, the German police is it provincial? I forget what their districting is called, whether it's a province or whatever. But they would different provinces or whatever, the German terminology. Apologies, people. They would buy different weapons, and they had a German military and police trials in the early 80s, and the police went with single stack 9mm, and that's where like the cool guns of the 80s came out of, like is people developing weapons for these military trials or these police trials. And so you would see the different versions. The military trials would be the double stacks, and the police trials would be the single stacks. And that's where you get the HKP7M8. That's where you get the, like, what are some other ones? There's the SIG 225, which is the single stack 9mm.
Yeah. Yeah, I had one. I had one when they were $300.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what I would say is, like, I don't like SIGs, but they shoot really well. Like, there's something
I got rid
about
of all my SIGs.
They're too heavy.
I got
for
rid
me.
of all my SIGs on this on all this shit that happened in the past couple of years.
Yeah.
Mm.
I mean, they're very high quality. They're too heavy. It's like the bore axis feels like extremely high, but they still shoot well.
Yeah.
They're
yeah.
just bulky and big.
Again, I mean, everyone wants to, dig on the Glocks, doll, but hey, you know what? I think they are great.
They are the AK-47 of handguns for a reason.
Yep, very true.
Faggot.
I recommend you stop being such a faggot.
All right, that's it.
That's hilarious. No, I mean, I like to carry the 43X. It just, I mean, it feels so good in in the hand, and like all the police around here, that's their backup weapon is a 43X. It just if it's so well in everybody's hands, 10 rounds, 9mm single stack. I mean, it's just, it feels great.
Though I've not had any issues.
The one thing I will say is that Glock triggers are just absolute ass.
Oh yeah.
Have to be aftermarket. You need to.
You have to,
or you can do the polish.
the old trick of changing the disconnector and the like return spring to get that sweet spot. And but yeah, no, I get it. My wife my wife has a 43, and I think it's really cool. It's a little too small for me. 43X is beautiful. 48's beautiful. 19 is a brick, but it works, so I don't care.
Yeah.
Buy a 17 if you want to get an FRT.
Yeah, I mean, well, here's the other thing too that we can talk about with this is that just everyone just carry appendix. You can hide a much bigger gun on your person, like a 19 or something, if you're carrying appendix. I mean, I know when everybody first starts off, like, I'm a little nervous about having a gun that close to my dick, but it's it'll be fine, dude.
Just don't carry a 320 and you'll be fine.
Eventually you'll get away from the 4 o'clock hold, or I'm still amazed how many guys still think like, oh, you know what, I'm just going to carry small the back. It's like, dude, come on.
I am too old to get away from the 4 o'clock. I'm sorry. Just way too old. I mean, all my training, like literally my hand, that's where my hand goes.
Yeah, I guess I'm the odd man out here. Too bad.
And when you become old and develop a tummy, the behind the hip is especially. I have a friend who even working construction has carried, like, and what I would do is, like, working in offices and stuff, I would have to down gun, or I would have to work around things based on how I was dressed, right? And so you carry whatever is appropriate, and he would always carry a compact double stack whatever, and he was AIWB for a really long time, like literally crawling around in these construction sites building stuff carrying AIWB, and he got to the point where he was left that work, and he was like, I got too much of a gut, I'm back behind the hip, and I'm much happier. I'm like, okay. Gotta do what you gotta do, man.
I inherited a shoulder holster from my grandfather. Don't really have anything that fits it, but they're interesting. It's a cool idea.
I will say this: I am somebody who forever and ever and ever just swore off 1911s until you shoot a 1911 in 9mm.
Yeah. Yep.
And then it's over. And people go, oh, well, if you're going to shoot a 1911 in 9mm, why don't you just get a high power? It's like, I have two. It's not the same. Believe me, it's not the same. I mean, I love high powers. High powers is, I think Carl and I were talking one time. It was like 95% of the men in the world, like the high power fits just perfectly in their hand.
Yes.
No matter what size you are or anything, it's just perfect. But like a good Colt 1911 9mm with the Cobra grips from the movie Cobra. Yeah. That's I'm sorry, it's a meme gun. I don't care.
Well, everybody's got to have some, right? I mean, I'm at this point where it's like I just know that within the next 10 years, I'm going to inherit something like 50. So I'm like, I don't even want to buy anything else anymore. So like, where the hell
No,
am I
that
gonna
makes
put
sense.
everything?
Yeah. I have to tell you guys, my grandfather's Colt commercial government model made in 1924 burned up in the Paradise, California fire.
Oh.
And my uncle was going to give it to me because his son would have just pawned it. I got him some nice grips for it because my granddad actually carried this thing. After World War II, he came home and he saw it in a in the window of a pawn shop and was like, I'm going to buy that because the military issue ones are just rattle traps and they're going to be a dime a dozen, and this thing will always be super high quality because they were hand fitted and everything. And so he bought it for $50, which was like a pretty substantial amount of money at the time for a pistol. It was, I think he said it was like 2 weeks' wages for the job that he got afterwards in a foundry. And yeah, and that was his piece, and it was absolutely gorgeous. He had Packmeyer grips on it that he put on in the late 60s because he carried it when he would motorcycle around, and he gave it to my uncle and it burned up in the Paradise fire. And I was just like, "Dah!" The saddest thing is that, and then his wife's Colt Python made in the 70s burned up also. Like they had like 30 minutes to get out of town when the wind shifted, and like all these heirlooms of all kinds burned up. And it was just like, oh, that's brutal. Like literally money cannot replace those things.
No. Why don't we shift the conversation a little bit here to the political? I mean, I know that over the last couple of years in particular, especially after 2020, a lot of people have discussed in the broader right-wing sphere about the actual utility of the Second Amendment, right? And I do have to say, my opinion has shifted on this quite a bit as I've aged. Definitely growing up from like the classic boomer con household and talking points of, well, eventually someday, because the right wingers have all the guns, everything's just going to be over, yada yada yada. I mean, I guess like what can really be said at this point? Then I'm glad that we have it. I think the best utility it has at this point is being able to stop Jamal from stealing your bike. But as it relates to actually shrinking the power of the state and the government, I think it's kind of obvious at this point that the Second Amendment is just not fit for that purpose. But either way, people should have guns. People should train with guns. People should know how to use them. If you're an American, man, you absolutely should own them. What do you fellas think?
Go ahead, Carl.
Okay. I will choose my words carefully. On paper, it is a both collective and individual right. And if we turn it into merely an individual right, it really loses its teeth. You also have hundreds of years of militia laws and things of that nature that make it to where you have to be very careful about the way that you talk about things. And I just want to send this out there into the ether for everyone. You and your friends, even if you are tempted to have names for things, or you're part of a group, let's say, that has a name, you never, as a collective, participate in certain types of activities. you as individuals can go together to do safety training or whatever, but that's it, because that's how they get you, by people talking like they're super cool and everything like that. There's also an old argument that the left gets in trouble by committing crimes and the right would get in trouble by acquiring cool stuff that they were entrapped into. And so like there's no such thing as deals out there. Do everything above board and follow all laws carefully. That's my rant on the subject.
Second.
I would say that living where I live and knowing the crime statistics of certain towns, I would say that and then looking at the demographics of a town. So in Alabama, you can have a town of, say, 3,000, and there'll be 700 people in it from who took boat rides here. Let's say that their families took boat rides here, and there really aren't a lot of problems. There may be some problems every once in a while between them and each other, but they pretty much know what they're surrounded by.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what people don't get. That when they think about the South, they're like, oh, there's a lot of black people down there. Okay, yeah, Birmingham, you got Birmingham, you got Atlanta, you got Albany, Georgia, places like that. Of course, Tuskegee here, and but when it comes to places where it's not 98% that class, yeah, but things are pretty calm. Pretty calm. You're pretty much not worried about anything. You happen to leave your door unlocked when you go to sleep. When you wake up and realize you kept your door unlocked, you're not worried. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that there's a lot of fucking guns here.
Yeah, they know they'll get blasted.
Wow.
There was a case in, I think this was as late as the late 90s. One town over from where I grew up, where my grandmother had spent her childhood, or some portion of her childhood, and a ne'er-do-well from an urban center, an urban ute. Two urban utes decided that they were going to go into this community based on some intel they got from, I don't know who, probably someone doing some work, and robbed the place. And the homeowner shot one of them in the back with a Colt Python in the backyard. And the local prosecutors were like, word, son. And like, that probably wouldn't fly now given the county that it's in, but that is tradition. That's the traditional standard that governed America and Western Europe, is that you do not mess with a man's castle, and if you do, there are consequences for it. And so I feel like the people that poo-poo the Second Amendment are basically just racist libtards a lot of the time, and they're kind of gay, because it's like, no, like, I understand some of their point. The argument is like, everyone having to carry a gun isn't cool. It'd be better if scumbags weren't on the street. I agree completely with that. However, if you poo-poo it too much, yes, from a political perspective, so far, is it influencing things? No. But let's just talk about something that Pete and I are pretty well versed in, which is the Spanish Civil War. in Spain, they had to like go overseas to buy bolt action rifles for the Spanish patriots from among the population who made themselves available to the army. I notice that how I avoid certain trigger words because I'm not retarded. That's like a total non-issue in America. That's like an absolute non-issue. So just putting that out there.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some good points to be made there, for sure. I mean, yeah, well, just look to the old adage, right? Better to have it and not need it than need it and not have, right?
Yeah. And another thing is that you'll remember from like the 90s and the aughts. And again, I understand where people think this is corny because it hasn't played out too often, but every once in a while it does. Remember the people saying, you know, there are millions of deer hunters in America who have experience pulling the trigger out to 300 yards, right? And it's true.
Mm-hmm.
It's very true. It just hasn't become a thing yet. But
yeah, I mean, there's more deer hunters in the Midwest than all of the world's armies combined.
exactly, exactly. And so, like, if you think about it that way, like that is a capability, and that capability doesn't matter unless it's like organized. You know, the bundle of sticks with the axe head sticking out of the top, right? Like you have to be part of a culture and a society with hierarchy to be able to do things like that. And you know, the nice thing is that, you know, maybe there's opportunities for it being taken advantage of by lawful authority, lawfully legal authority with shiny badges.
Yeah, exactly. 100% legal. Yes. Yeah, it really, really, really is a rich topic. You can go many different directions with, whether it's the hunting, whether it's the competition shooting, whether it's the plethora of gun tubers, the not gay ones, you know, of which there are a couple.
It is kind of crazy that, I mean, the average person can have weaponry on par and even better than some of the military weaponry.
Yeah, that's
You
true.
just in a lot of cases you're going to have to pay for it. You pay out the ass for it if you want to start playing with short barrel rifles and short barrel shotguns and suppressors. You're going to have to do NFA stuff. You don't have the $200 anymore. But it's there. And thinking that oh well, everything I have, no one knows what I have because I bought everything private sales. Look, they know what you have. You want to be able to bury them in the backyard. They can actually find that shit.
Just you're buying ammo. You're mail ordering ammo with credit cards and debit cards. And,
I mean,
yeah,
and gun.
Our favorite woman in the chat, Dawn Browning, is just bringing this up right now down in Old Oz, saying we can't have loaded firearms in the home or while in transit. We have to have separate lock boxes. I mean, just not having to deal with all that faggoty bullshit like that, well, is can you imagine? Can you literally imagine someone trying to tell me, no, you can't have a loaded firearm in your house at any time? Fuck you. Fuck
dude,
you.
we can have MP5s. We can have, LMTs. We can have H&K rifles that are just as good as, the one that allegedly killed Saddam. I mean, Osama bin Laden. I don't believe that story for a fucking second. But I mean, we can have all the quality that military has. And do I think that the reason why the government hasn't gone like completely like black bagging masses of people, because people do get black bagged by the government,
Sure.
but black bagging masses of people because we have weaponry? No, we just don't have a government that knows how to function. You should be happy about that. I mean, it just doesn't work. They can target like one person or a group here and there, but for the most part, they don't even have the budget to like police all of the dispensaries in like Orange County, California. Couldn't do that in a year with their budget. So
That's a good
I
point.
mean, if you have this stuff, if you have, quote unquote military type weapons, I mean, there, could come a day societal breakdown. A lot of people in Minneapolis could have probably used some. People in other areas probably could have used some at different times, but they're there. They just, it's it's nice to know. It's nice to know it's there. And they're fun.
Yeah.
They're fun as fuck.
Super
I mean,
fun.
Yeah.
once you start shooting suppressed, you don't want to shoot unsuppressed anymore.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean,
Yeah.
if you can get your setup to the point where you can shoot outdoors without ears, I mean, love. I mean, it's so much fun.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny, like, obviously when you go out hunting and such, it's not like you're bringing your headphones out when you're out in the field or what have you. So once you've been through the process a few times of the ear ringing, you're like, oh, God, I don't want to deal with this ever again. Which just puts it in the context of, no wonder everybody came back from all these wars completely fucking deaf.
Yes, exactly.
And there's so many electronic earbuds now where you can fucking shoot 45, 70 government and be talking to your buddy without taking them off. I mean, it's the technology's there. I mean, you can get those for sometimes less than $60.
Oh yeah.
I got Walker electronic earmuffs.
I was just going to mention that. Yeah.
The stereo ones for $35 each. Like
they have Bluetooth.
A couple Christmases ago, I think they do have Bluetooth.
And you can listen to music while you're shooting.
Yeah, I know, it's crazy. And so my son early on, like, he liked shooting, but he hated the noise and he hated the hearing protection and like with the bulky analog stuff. But then using a nice compact electronic earmuffs with full caliber stuff, he absolutely loves it. And the first time, he shot prone and, at 100 yards, it wasn't like a group that you would write home about, but he kept them all in like a, 4-inch circle. He was like, oh my God. And he holds up the paper and he holds it against his chest and he just started laughing. Because he was like, this isn't hard. And it's like, and then he realized how much of a skill it was to like learn, like, yeah, it's not that hard, but you can get better and better. And it gives you something to focus on. And it's a whole discipline, but it's actually useful because then you can use it for all these other things. So, yeah.
I had a suggestion for people because I know the conversation comes up a lot about teaching your wife, your girlfriend to shoot, and handguns. You can usually figure something out pretty good and everything, but it's not always that a woman can handle like an AR or something like that. If you're, if you want to get, if you want her to have more rounds in a hunting rifle or something like that, I'm telling you, the PS90, the FN PS90 is perfect for a woman.
That makes sense.
It is so perfect. Look, I can short barrel, 10-inch barrel. I can handle it with one hand. I can literally maneuver it with one hand, raise up, get zero with one hand, with one arm. I mean, it's perfect for a woman. I was talking to Stormy about that. We were on video, and I was like just showing him, and he's like, "Oh, that is like the perfect thing for a woman." And I'm like, "Yeah." I mean, it's weighs less. I think loaded, even with the 50-round mag, and even if you throw a little suppressor on it, It's not 6 pounds.
That's crazy. That's awesome. 50 rounds. And again, it's a miniaturized version of the 5.56 cartridge. Yes, I know, but it's essentially a miniaturized version of it with like the lightest bullet that you can get, but like 50 rounds of it. And the idea is that you're not shooting it past like personal defense distances, 150, 200 meters.
The FN rounds that come in the red box, they're about $1 a round. They're 27 grain. Check the ballistics videos on them.
Yeah.
They enter and immediately go up. Like they enter like no matter where you shoot it in the gelatin, it shoots up straight up at the top. Now think about what that's going to do to a body. I mean, it's pretty wild. And then you have different, like some companies have made different. I have a 36 grain copper hollow point that, I mean, like will penetrate and mushroom like crazy, and it'll penetrate like 20 inches and just mushroom like fucking just yeah. So that I just wanted to say that because, you know, Stormy and I were brainstorming on that, and it was and I was like, it's just a perfect weapon for a woman. And I think it was, you know, when you know the history of the platform and what it was designed for. It was designed for Belgians who they thought that, you know, during the Cold War the Soviets would invade. It was designed for every like I think they said they wanted it a 10-year-old to be able to operate it.
Yeah, it was untrained troops or like barely minimal familiarization required for it to be
it ejects the rounds down.
Yes.
If you shoot it suppress, it ejects the gas down.
Yes.
I mean, there's
which is a big deal.
It reminds me of that line in Lord of War, the Nick Cage movie. He's like, the AK-47, so simple a child can use it, and they do.
It ejects the cases down before some pedant autist tells me. Comes in and says, "You said it ejects the rounds down." But yeah, I can't say enough about how much fun that thing is to shoot, especially the short barrel. I mean, come on, you're in a fucking video game. Yeah, Adam said it's ambidextrous too. I mean, the only thing you got to do is the rail sits a little high. You just get rid of take the rail out, get an adapter, and then you can put a red dot in it, and it works perfectly fine.
Man, we could just be here for hours, couldn't we? Yeah.
Oh, dude,
easily.
We haven't even started talking about MP5Ks.
Yeah, I know that's one of Charlemagne's favorites. Good old MP5s. Yeah, the ones that are suppressed 22s. Could just shoot them literally all day.
I had, believe it or not, I had a Glock 19, a Gen 3. It was OD, and I had it set up suppressed, and with a really inexpensive, it was the first suppressor I ever got. It was a Huntington Arms Guardian 9. Like after the first shot, all you heard was the slide racking with 147 grain or 158 grain. That's a 158 grain SMB. Yeah. Wonderful. So much fun. So much fun.
Yeah, it's when you're getting to the point when an actual gun starts to sound like a BB gun, you're like, ooh.
Well, I mean, some of the 5.56 suppressors now are really, really good. Like the Lazarus 6.
Yeah.
The Lazarus 6, oh my goodness. It's like when you look at the noise reduction on that, holy crap. Even on 10.5, 11-inch barrels.
And they're small.
Yeah.
Like with the laser metal sintering, they're so small, and you can have this complex geometry that is like non-machinable. It's really
baffles. Yeah, the baffles on the Lazarus 6 are 3D printed with what's the metal they use? They use the same metal that yeah, they use it on the afterburners on the F-35 or something like that.
Yeah.
Amazing.
That's what everything is now. If you notice, almost all the new companies are doing laser metal sintering or whatever the term is. I'm sure I'm butchering it, but like Inconel and titanium and stuff like that, and you can do multi-metal laser sintering so that you can have some of it be like more of it be titanium and some of just the blast baffle and certain components be Inconel to save money. But yeah, it's really wild. And that's where just the proliferation and the technology, my argument is that the people who are worried about, I'm in a state that was recently totally captured by libtards and they're pushing all this gun control, and but if you look at the federal level, the deregulation that is taking place, where they're just throwing in the towel on a lot of this stuff because we have technological workarounds plus inflation, and we also have enough advocacy in the Congress to get, for example, this the NFA tax removed for suppressors, short-barreled rifles, and short-barreled shotguns, to where those things are going to be most likely by the end of the year be thrown out as even an entire category, because it's the NFA was only justifiable in 1934 because of Congress's ability to impose taxes on interstate trade. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens there. But I just don't worry about it. I don't have this negative perspective that a lot of these people do because of that, because I think it just seems inevitable to me that they're just not going to be able to control things. You can't stop the signal. Like Washington and California and New York are trying to pass restrictions on 3D printer manufacturers that would stop them from making gun components. And there's a company in Spain that is basically saying we can tell if a component is in violation of these things or not. And it's like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, it's not enforceable. You can claim it, you can try it, you can say this stuff is illegal, but you're not going to stop it. It's just impossible. And so I sincerely believe that just non-compliance and proliferation is what you do, and you just develop an adversarial relationship with your government. I'm not saying violate the law. I'm saying that's the trend in society. Like if you look at like weed restrictions in America, like they end up legalizing weed a bunch of places, and then they kind of de facto criminalize it in others unless it's over certain amounts, because they're like, it's just everywhere, and like we can't just lock everyone up for it. And so they have to start.
It's honestly how they lost the war against weed.
That's exactly it.
Yeah,
pretty much, yeah.
I mean, as much as like I mean, obviously that's a topic that nobody here is a fan of. Obviously, the proliferation of weed in all of our cities smelling like shit. But I mean, yeah, they lost it just simply because it's just completely unenforceable.
It's completely unenforceable.
Yeah, and it's like to the point where the printing technology is just so accessible now. I mean, I was over at a friend's house not too long ago, and show me like in depth about how you can get yourself kitted out and for not even like $1,000, and you're basically just like an arms dealer in your house.
Yes.
It's just impossible at this point. It's just not able to do it.
What's fucking crazy is that Lazarus 6, where it uses Haynes 282 alloy, and they 3D print it. That Haynes 382 alloy is used in boiler and steam turbines up to 1400 degrees Fahrenheit. I mean, think about that. What do you have to do to break that? What are you going to have to do to fuck that up? And they're using that, they're 3D printing with that.
And you can't,
it's over.
And
it's
you
over.
can't say exactly that the people who don't understand technology don't understand that any limitations that you attempt to impose on this screws everything about, manufacturing in America. So the feds aren't going to allow it, because they're going to be like, oh, you're going to impose for some stupid reason. You're going to have some proprietary company in Spain that's going to tell you if you can print shit or not. Like, when we need to like reindustrialize America, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. It's completely absurd. They just can't do it.
I mean, what's interesting about this too is that this actually was kind of quietly going away on like a lot of the left-wing platforms in recent times, until like this Virginia thing, which just came out of nowhere. Dude, it's like, oh, okay, we're just going to try and ban guns from the entire state. And I'm no expert on this one. People can go listen to Burden on this one. I'm sure he's got a lot to say about this, but I found that one very, very bizarre, because it wasn't even something like Cabela brought up at all. Like in the 2020 election, really didn't bring up guns much. This is kind of one of those things that has actually gone our way, at least since I've been alive. I mean, like the people point out like the concealed carry maps all the time.
100%.
So, I mean, yeah.
Another cool thing is if when you start getting into suppressors and stuff, a very cool, like, just a bonus of it. Most of them are made in the United States.
Yeah.
You're getting stuff that's made in the United States. So, I mean, you can look that stuff up, of course, when you're ordering it. But yeah, I mean, like, I don't think I have a suppressor that isn't made in the United States. Yeah, they're just, it's game over for them. I mean, Cody Wilson basically destroyed them.
Yeah.
When he released all of those files, and then he came out with the what the hell's the name of that the CNC machine he has?
Ghost Gunner, which is just
the Ghost Gunner.
Simple CNC, desktop CNC, which is like costs
insanely
way
simple.
more than everything else that's coming out now.
Yeah, but it's insanely simple. You hook it up to a laptop, and then basically, boom, you just hit some. I mean, it does everything for you. It's basically automated. I mean, it's fucking nuts, man. Cat's out of the bag, people.
Cat's out of the bag. Cat's out of the bag. And that's the number one thing, is that we can, like, one of the things that people worry about in terms of like AI and, just the blowing up of a lot of the kind of white collar class. I have a different perspective on that topic, despite being a person in the impact zone of such things. Is that what it means is you're just not going to have large companies that are going to need lots of people to do that kind of work anymore. But with these new tools, you're empowered like never before to punch way above the weight of just a single person. Emily Yukis just put out an insanely hilarious, just on the nose Will Stancil show episode that is genius, but using a technology that, the way she frames it, it's like having an animation studio and her having a budget to pay like an animation studio in Korea to do all the work, but she can do it herself, one person, and pay a little bit of money for like server time. And that applies to manufacturing, which applies to guns and the Second Amendment. So, like, to your point, Pete, on the federal level, it's over. It's just deregulation. So we are going into this system of de facto state, the states deciding how they're going to do things. And yeah, it might suck to deal with some of the stuff for a while, but I honestly think a lot of that is going away. I think they're just not going to be able to do it. I mean, Don Quavius can spray the hood with his P80, kit with a switch that he ordered from wish.com. And that's totally fine from the perspective of the feds. It's over. And it's like, it's going to take some time to get there. Our producer points out in chat that GOA in West Virginia is pushing a bill to sell new machine guns through state gun stores. Interesting. So my guess is that that's based on manufacturers selling only in state, so that it's not federally regulated, by interstate trade. I think this is an old tactic that people had been planning to attempt, and so it sounds like they're going for it.
The argument against it people are making is the same old argument. Well, people can just take it over state lines. I mean, anyone who has an SBR in the NFA, through the NFA, knows that before you take it at state lines, you have to, fill out a form to say exactly where you're going. You don't have to do that for suppressors, but you have to do it for SBRs. Most of the people who are going to be able to buy these things and afford these things are law-abiding citizens who would do that if they were taking it, if they had to take it somewhere, and they would know the law about where they're taking it. Believe me, when I drive, the only reason I have a permit in my state, which is constitutional state, is because I go to the surrounding states.
Yeah.
And the surrounding states want you to have that. I know which states don't reciprocate. I don't take a weapon there.
Yep.
Indeed.
Here's another thing that's related that I know that Pete is familiar with: fixed reset triggers and super safeties. So for our listeners who aren't aware, these are devices that operate in such a fashion that the federal government, through the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, recognizes these things as operating as semi-automatic weapons based on the language of the National Firearms Act of 1934, which defines what is a machine gun versus what is semi-automatic. And they're essentially drop-in components that either have a reset that takes place in the trigger mechanism engaging with the bolt, or like a lever. The super safety is a lever on the safety, where there's a camming action against the bolt. And if you fire them, you can actually feel that you're like, oh, if I hold it down hard all the way so that my finger prevents it from resetting, it'll only fire one round. Thus, it's semi-automatic, so you have to have this light touch to allow the system to literally push the trigger forward to a full reset. And because you're holding it, it'll break and fire. So
they basically made it a bump fire.
Correct. But it's internal to the gun. Correct. And the ATF lost a multi-year lawsuit against a company called Rare Breed Triggers, which
those AR triggers are amazing.
They are, but I have to do I have to state that Rare Breed Triggers, as part of this lawsuit, was required by the ATF. Listen to how much sense this makes. This took place under the Biden administration. Do I think it would be wildly different given the leadership of the ATF under the Trump administration? Probably not. But they got basically an exclusive right to sell a drop-in, like pretty much fully semi-automatic is the joke, trigger component. And then they were required, as part of their winning this lawsuit by the ATF, or the settlement associated with it, I should say, to aggressively pursue, legally, anyone who would attempt to infringe upon them being the sole distributor of these things. Well, the fellow who invented, Mr. Hoffman, the fellow who invented the super safety, put it out there into the public domain. Someone else put a basically fraudulent patent on his invention within the 1 year discretionary period. and then sold it to the people who basically this organization that owns rare breed triggers, and they go around as patent trolls suing anyone who would make something that even comes close to this functionality, basically at the behest of the ATF to try to shut them down. And so there are multiple class action lawsuits going on against them right now, and essentially it's extremely likely that the fraudulent patent is going to get thrown out, as well as some of the other patents. So if people want to participate in this, there are a couple of funds out there for people to donate to, again through Hoffman, who's on X, and then some other groups are also fighting for their own super safety businesses, and it's very expensive. I'm aware of a person who has spent more than $90,000 on this fight, and it's still ongoing. So personally, I would recommend that people not support rare breed triggers, although the pieces that they make are very high quality. It's interesting that part of their argument in the courts was that because they charged $450, which is like $300+ of pure profit, according to them, according to the lawsuit, it being more expensive is good from some legal perspective because it restricts who has access to it, rather than it being rather than it being about them like owning this invention, because they're totally unrelated mechanisms. So that's something that'll play itself out soon. And my reason for going into all this is, again, this is another situation where, just like shoulder braces, which were a workaround, arm braces, it's basically a folding stock, but it was legal to add it because certain aspects of stock features are not there, others are, but because of equal protection combined with making allowances for disabled people, you can create this new class of things. And so that is like the root of getting the short barrel rifle and short barrel shotgun restriction basically thrown away from the NFA, because it became unenforceable through, again, propagation of these workarounds. So keep working on things and keep legally challenging the restrictions on what you can access, and maybe someday we'll be able to have unrestricted access to other things. Thank you.
Alrighty. Well, with that, gents, why don't we tackle these super chats and we'll call it a night, eh? Always a fun discussion. Talk about the oldest and noblest of American pastimes, I would say. Starting from the top, we got Solid Snake. This man knows his guns, absolutely. So he's stuck behind enemy lines once again with his suppressed handguns underneath his cardboard box to bring us the first super chat of the evening. He says to us for $5, "Evening, gents. I've had the pleasure to shoot some cool guns in my short life so far. MP5, SMLE, Garand, and some others. Here's hoping that someday I can walk into my local store and buy an automatic submachine gun at normal prices. Salute."
Real Americans.
They may be coming sooner than you think, my friend. We'll see. Wolfgang for $15 says, "Salute the OGC. Down with the man flu, but I'm here anyway." Damn. All right. Well, hopefully.
Real Americans.
Yes, and you indeed are a real American. Aramaic Discourse for $5. "I prefer tacos and tequila after my hunting trips. Salute."
Real Americans.
Yes, you are a real American, sir. Wolfgang again for $5. "The state of Iowa mandates 350 minimum. 30-30 and 30-06 are out of here." I'm assuming he's talking about for deer.
I think that they require like the straight case weirdo rounds. that are very cool, but niche.
Oh yeah, he says in the next super chat, this is for deer hunting. Yeah, I assumed as much. Alrighty. Seasider for $10 sends us a salute as he does every week. Thank you very much, sir. You're a real American.
Real Americans.
Yeah, there we go. Real Americans. Xcomer for $5 says 32 ACP. And there you go. And you just know there's going to be so many people in the comment section at the end of this one. I mean,
Real Americans.
Yeah, yeah, real Americans indeed. Let's see. Daryl Armentrout for $5 says VA here lost all Virginia here lost all my good stuff in a voting accident. Yeah. Yep. Stay strong there, boys. Stay strong. Christopher Burks sends us $5 and a salute. Thank you very much, sir.
Real Americans.
Real American. Yes, real American. City Break Dancer Man, always one of the funniest names in the chat, for $5, also sends us a salute.
Real Americans.
Yeah, real Americans. Bolero 393 and Old Head for $5 says, can't wait until victory when American schools will teach pistol and rifle marksmanship, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and hunting skills as mandatory high school credits. Boy,
Based
today. Yeah. All right. Bolero 393 again for $5. Future American history classes will include practice with historical weapons and tactics while students learn about the wars in which they were used. Yeah, that'd be cool. It's like, yeah, you guys are going to reenact a colonial militia in South Carolina, and you're going to watch Mel Gibson's The Patriot. Yeah. Hammer Rain for $10 says, trimming 223 brass to reload 300 blackout has been one of my favorite things to teach my sons. Carl, what's a good defense round for bears?
Heaviest, basically the heaviest, flattest nose that'll work with exposed lead. You want maximum penetration, but allowing it to mushroom, not just FMJ.
Yeah, Buffalo Boar has a couple 44 mag rounds that are great for bear. He's actually they actually have one that he says he's taken a bear down with one of his 9mm one of his 9mm loads.
Damn.
It's like
you ever shoot a buffalo boar? Carl told me about this for my P32. It's like a plus P plus. There's a black guy doing a ballistics gel video on it on YouTube. It is by far the deepest penetrator of any 32 ACP that I've seen.
Yeah, the only bear I've ran into in the States was I was at a bachelor party and we were staying in a cabin in the middle of rural Pennsylvania. I was walking down a trail after a night of drinking, and there was a black bear on the trail, and it quickly took off. So that was cool to see. The brown bears definitely aren't as common as they used to be in the lower 48, but they're making a comeback in some areas. So,
they reintroduced grizzly bears to my family grouse lands about 2 years ago, and I'm honestly like, I don't even want to camp up there anymore.
You gotta be careful.
Yeah.
All right. Where do we leave off here? Semper Credulous for $3. In a truly free country, I would be free to hunt Canadian geese with Lego brick 12-gauge shotgun shells. Goose hunting is a lot of fun. If I want to shoot snow geese, go to Missouri or something to shoot them, because they just fly in flocks of 10,000 strong, and it's just boom, 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 boom. That would be really fun. No, I'm Not Grim from Red Hood, who is also a channel member, and you guys in the chat can also now sign up for channel memberships and get access to OGC streams behind the paywall, such as our gaming content that we've been doing quite a bit recently, including on Tuesday, instead of watching the State of the Union, where we had some very, very intense battles, particularly at the end of the stream, with myself, Mr. Quinn, Charlemagne, and Raging Mandrill. We were playing some Total Warhammer 3. So you too can become a channel member and get access to those videos. But he says for $2, New Vegas's Honest Hearts DLC, maybe love 1911s. I never played any of the Fallout games, so I cannot relate, unfortunately. Alrighty. Let's see. Imagine my lack of shekels for $10. I'm starting a community organization to educate leftists on their 2A rights. Membership comes with complimentary SIG. Lesson 1 is how to toss your weapon to your comrade.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Nice. Kyle Linscock for $15 says, thanks for the information and chat. Well, thank you, sir. Aramaic Discourse again for $5. I noticed the only people advocating for gun control lately are politicians / activists of foreign extraction, at least in my area. Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah, they're the main ones.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, very good point. Yeah, you don't have like the Beto O'Rourke's anymore, like the white politicians talking about gun stuff much anymore. X-Runner 55. Best way to describe it is the pie gets bigger, but the slices get smaller, and everyone gets richer. Not sure what that's in reference to at the time, but thank you very much, sir. We appreciate it. Zenrath for $5. Virginia will be a wild one for a while. Send us your prayers. Not to mention, I heard the term assault handgun entered the scene recently. Oh, for God's sake. Well, alrighty. Yeah, definitely hang in there, Virginia guys. And it's times like this that we must remind everybody, join your local OGC chapter. Got to have people you can rely on in these trying times. I know a lot more of our guys are starting to get in business with each other. Really, really big and very, very important task into the future. So join the OGC. Moving on here to X-Runner 55 again for $5. He says, the best way... oh, wait, no, I just read that one. Next one is Super Jack hack for $20. Here's $20 and all that that entails. Also, Yugo guns are great. Don't know anything about that.
Jack has a ongoing teasing campaign with Mr. Burden, IRL and online, on this subject.
There we go.
I like the underfolder AKs. They're a little heavy, but I've grown to have a great appreciation for Czech guns and Czech ammo, which has become my favorite ammo.
Very good ammo. Hey, Jack.
John C. Barsom for $10. Beretta has some fantastic rebates currently, even on threaded 32 ACP guns. Jay Byrne promised to get one for his wife. Interesting. Yeah, we talk about Beretta too much, but I recently got one of the A400s and went and shot pheasants with it, and I had a fun time with it.
Those are great guns.
Yeah, they're fun. I like my Benelli Nova better.
Of course.
Yeah, that gun is such a joy to shoot.
The Guineas are so much better than the Slavs.
The Italians really know how to make a shotgun, man.
They really do.
Yeah.
They do.
All right, Marcos 588 for $8 Australian. Sadly, not a real American here, despite admiring Patton. Cheers from the Adipodes, lads. Would you all bring on an Aussie, your actual greatest ally? Yes, Americans indeed are friends of the Australians. Definitely share a special kinship with our Aussie friends.
We love our Aussies, don't we?
Yes, indeed. And I pray that you guys can have your home again in these trying times, especially. I think they're coming for your guys' guns again in the wake of a shooting that involved literally nobody who was Australian on either side. So.
We had an Aussie on the stream for when we did the Bondi Beach episode.
We did. Yes. And finally, we got Volpes Persona for $5, also supporting the channel membership star. We got to get some emojis or some pictures or something for channel members. I remember back in the day on AA's channel, people could have like Emperor Palpatine like stickers or something, on their sides. We gotta do something creative for that. Anyway, he says American 180. Not familiar. Not sure what he's referring to there. But anyway, we'll take your money regardless.
That is a 22 Magnum submachine gun that looks like a Thompson with a big pan magazine on the top of it. It is wild as hell, but they're really cool. They were made in the 70s, and the idea was that it was if I recall correctly, it would be for dealing with like prison riots. So it's, 22 Magnum, so relatively short range, and it would still sting more than a little bit.
Okay, you gotta like throw a jab into somebody's skull as you're pulling the trigger.
But it's literally like a 12-inch barrel submachine gun, full auto at like 1,800 rounds per minute or something. So you're emptying like a 200 round pan drum into the teeming masses of the types of people that commit prison riots. So pretty cool.
Alrighty, and that is the last of the super chats. So Pete, what do you have to promote? I'm sorry you woke up to some bad news this morning about the YouTube situation, but where can people find all of your stuff?
I expected it. I mean, I can't believe it. I can't believe that it took this long. Yeah, Pete Quinones show, all podcatchers. You can check out the videos for 200 Years Together over on Odyssey, and yeah, the audio. If you contact me, I'll let you know where the audio is, because just gotta be a little careful right now. But yeah, that's it. Got a new episode dropping tonight of the Inquisition that it already dropped with Thomas 777, Stormy Waters, and this guy named Karl Dahl. So
yeah, that guy, you guys might have heard of him. Yeah, Mr. Dahl. Anything else to promote, sir? And thank you for coming on. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was super fun. I appreciate it. I'm always happy to talk about firearms autism as well as promote the OGC. You can find me at karldahl.substack.com or on X at CaudilloDahl. Thank you.
Alrighty, and last minute super chat from our good friend SkiBum220, always a good friend of the show, sends us $50. I guess he is a gun enjoyer. He says, salute the OGC. Well, salute to you, sir. You are a real American.
Real Americans.
Yeah,
Patriot.
indeed. Well, I have nothing to promote right now because it's tax season, so I'm going to go to bed. So we'll be here and back for more Pony Express Radio next week. Everyone watch the rest of the great shows OGC is putting out. American Spirits on Mondays, Chapter House on Wednesday, and then the occasional gaming stream. You guys got to be here live to watch it, and then it's going to go behind the paywall. So get those channel memberships if you want to watch it. The last episode that we did on the Tuesday of the State of the Union was quite fun indeed. So if people want something to relax and watch some gaming content, definitely check that out. We'll be back next week. Everyone have a good weekend.
When I pass on my good genes to my sons, they're going to join the Old Glory Club.